So as you go out and you identify pain points that people have and who have money who want to solve them, recognize there's almost always a way. There's 50 different ways you could solve it.
Sipping on success, feet up in the air. Why work harder when you can play it smart? Well, that's the lazy leverage way to steal their heart.
We're live.
Hey,
Hey.
welcome back to Lazy Leverage. I'm John Matzner, joined by my Dan Kerner, who's also the producer of this podcast. How's it going, Dan?
Going great.
You know, you're a natural on camera. I'm
I
just kidding. You were
don't
saying,
know
like-
if that's true.
No, I'm just giving you a hard time. So the beginning of this conversation was we were talking a little bit about you are a man of many skills. I've seen you do some very interesting things with automation, with event related signage and
All kinds of event stuff.
video production. You and I geek out about AI and some like cool avatar animation stuff at a very, very high level. And you were saying right now you are kind of more or less delivering all the work yourself. Is that right?
I'm involved in the process. So I have people that are doing like a lot of the on the ground work, but I'm doing a lot of the account management, client management, getting new business, all those kinds of things, and involved in some of, I think, what you called like the taste element. So someone makes an edit on a video and you need someone to review that to give feedback, and I'm the one that's doing that.
Have you tried to build some leverage into your professional life unsuccessfully, successfully? I think we got you an assistant at some point, right? Who's good. Like, talk to me
Yeah.
about your relationship with leverage at this stage.
Yeah, I've probably done it more on the tech side than on the people side. So when we were cranking out a lot of short form video clips, I had a database set up in Airtable that was kind of keeping track of everything and all of the moving parts to make the whole process communicating with the team easier. And then had a team lead amongst my animators that was working with the rest of the team members and doing a little bit of that review process. But I'd say most of it's been on the tech side more than the people side.
As a review, there are really 3 forms of leverage. People say 4, it's really 3, and it's really more than 3, but it's labor, capital, and things that have no marginal cost of production. And the reason why leverage is important, the whole idea of this pod, is that it's how you do small input, big output. Now, whether that means you work less, whether that means you build a holding company, whether that means you make a bazillion dollars, you're going to become a master of leverage or else you'll never get there as a solo contributor. When I mentioned to you this idea of leverage, which we've talked about before, is there a form of leverage that appeals to you more? Like, speaking personally, I'm not a big capital leverage guy.
Yeah, I don't think I am either.
I'm not that interested.
Yeah, I guess I gravitate towards the smaller, scrappier type businesses. That's like the consulting I've done. So I think something with process or something with software that allows you to get some of that like scalability that you're talking about is something that it probably gravitates to me the most. But I know that at least the type of stuff I've been doing, because it's been consulting and it's been high touch consulting, that I know scaling up a team is going to be required if I want to keep moving down that line. So those are the 2 that would probably gravitate towards me the most.
There is a model for consulting I think is a very powerful one, and I've done it a couple times and it's fantastic. And it was kind of maybe some of the early seeds of Sagan. But what I would do that might fit in your instance, which I think you and I have talked about versions of this, and I think you've maybe done some of this, which is I use consulting to really scope out what is the pain point that somebody would pay for, because every company's different. Basically every company wants you to be a consultant and all you want to do is sell SaaS. So it's like, how do we combine what I want to do, which is sell SaaS, and what you want to do, which is call me at 8 a.m. on the weekend and have me just do anything and everything, right? And so I think especially with your skills and experience in like automation and AI and even some of the content stuff, where I think is a really interesting path for someone with your skill set, when I think about your background, is you use the consulting, because everybody says yes to consulting, especially with your credibility. Dude, Dan, working with Dan? Of course, right? But you use that as the kind of wedge offer. And then your job during that 90-day consulting agreement or that whatever agreement is to find a leave behind leveraged business model that is not Dan centric. So as a specific example, I did a coaching engagement with somebody and it was for like 3 months or 6 months and it was good. And they needed to talk to me before they just needed my judgment. Right. And at the end of that, I went, why aren't you guys using a mobile app that has forms in it to submit your crew help, pictures of when crews have issues on job sites and then send it offshore and they're all consolidated and whatever. And they're like, oh yeah, that would really help us. We're currently using PDFs that have to be filled out of a laptop sitting in the car. And I'm like, do you want me to just build the mobile app for you? And they're like, yeah. And so I said, great, I'll build it. And I lease it to them every month for $600 a month. It's mailbox money now. It's awesome. And I built it on top of a no-code platform, but I never would have scoped that opportunity if I hadn't been in there consulting. I couldn't have built a landing page for that. I don't want to be a mobile app developer, but I used the consulting to kick off what is a long-term high-quality revenue stream. And they're happy because they just got a custom piece of software that was exactly what they wanted. They would happily pay for forever.
How do you think about that relative to like productized services? Like as you're talking about doing the consulting to figure out where some of those potential high leverage opportunities are. Like I have some of those that have been bounced around in my head, but I view them more as a productized service I can sell versus doing something where you're going to be able to build a smaller recurring revenue piece on top of it.
Michael Greenberg, who's very smart, gent of tech. Have you ever watched or listened to his stuff?
Mm-mm.
He says basically productized services is just software that's not good enough yet. Which I was like, oh, it's a really good way to say it. And so what I would say is a lot of times productized services to me is one step in the right direction towards SaaS or automation. So as an example, let's pretend it's me, right? The productized service would be, look, you pay me $1,000 a podcast episode. And it starts by you helping me figure out how we're going to grow Lazy Leverage. Dan's very involved. And you go, hey, do you want me to produce this episode for you? And I'll still be involved. It'll be a Slack channel. And over a few months, it turns into a $1,000 productized service and Dan isn't involved. And then maybe in 6 months, when we figure out this like animated face thing and now you're doing whiteboard videos, you come back into that same channel and you're like, guys, I'll do unlimited videos for you for $399 a month and here's what the output looks like. And now you're in the nth degree business model. You don't have to have a Argentinian content producer who is always going to be messy because labor leverage is the hardest form of leverage. So like you could just stop and do what a lot of people do with productized services, which is like, yeah, $1,000 podcast episode. Here's what you get, deliverables. And then Dan works himself out of those deliverables. Or you could continue if you want to keep chasing leverage and be like, hey, we've created a community for B2B creators about how to grow their networks. And I'm just the community manager and we have asynchronous resources in there. Like you could keep going, or you could just freeze at productized service and scale the shit out of a $1,000 an episode that is automatically chopped into short form, plus turn it into newsletters, plus we use Google LM, plus, and you're like, and then you just do the math and you're like, my COGS on that's $380 at scale. I'm just going to scale the bejesus out of this offer. So I would say they're like on a spectrum. What do you think about that?
So that makes sense. Kind of like the stepping stones. You might start with a productized service and then you start going to more of the scalable leverage and off of the labor leverage.
There's nothing wrong though with productized services because it keeps you in the game. It's very cash flowy. It's not the Dan show, right? Like what are marketing agencies? Marketing agencies usually are productized services. And they're great businesses. You can make really good money there. You're not going to build a huge exit off a marketing agency, but you can have a great life and live in Southern California off a marketing agency and not work like a slave. If it's Dan is your marketing consultant, there's no leverage at all there. Productized services, you can build real leverage. Even if, for example, the market's not ready for the software yet, but you use it internally and you just never tell them. Like I've threatened to do that all the time with like some of the great image generation tools where I'm like, yeah, I'll do unlimited graphic design for you for $399 a month. And all I do is teach some people how to use the AI tools better because the market isn't ready to directly use the tool, which is only $39 a month. So I put a productized service in front of the software. Like that shit works because they're not ready to buy the SaaS yet, but they will work with their dedicated AI image generator. And that person, you just, hey, go watch a bunch of YouTube videos on AI image generation. And I'm like, okay. Like now, right? So like you can wrap a human being in front of a SaaS and turn it into a higher price point productized service, which is not, I think, a very interesting business model as well.
Which one of the ideas I have is around that. So some of the event work we've done, I found a lot of value for clients in building some dashboards that will like compare an event to a prior year event or kind of do some predictive analysis on where their ticket sales are going, which can influence their ad spend so it can get them to save money. And a lot of that, you're doing a lot of configuration in Google Sheets or using like Looker Studio or something. And once you get a lot of that set up, there's only a handful of different ways it gets configured. So the ability to copy paste and use it with multiple clients is pretty high.
I think people oftentimes chase too much leverage too quickly, and the market doesn't want that. Like you can build an insanely good business off of 4-week consulting agreements for $2,000. And then all you're doing is trying to find leverage that you leave behind. Like you come in for 4 weeks and you go, like, I'm dying. Like, again, I'm just gonna throw out crappy ideas. Like, hey, I'm a automation auditor. Like Justin Watt does this with Tim Ludwig. They do it as a part of acquisitions where like you pay me for $2,000. It's a productized service. And I meet with your company and identify automation opportunities. And that's it. There's no contract. There's no nothing. It's $2,000. And I just map out what I think are your top 10 automation targets. And now you're first in line to then go execute on those automation targets, which you can turn into like, so there's also, and maybe the answer is you only charge $500 because, but my point would be is I think you don't have to have uniform leverage across the delivery model. You can be like very labory and then you could be like, oh, they really need SaaS or like a higher leverage business model. They need me to produce their podcast for them. Okay. Like the way you start doesn't have to be the way you end.
And the nice thing about that, like you're getting paid to do the discovery work. It's a low
Correct.
commitment for the client. So that you're not spending hours building a proposal that then
Correct.
you get told no. And then to your point, you're first in line to do the execution. I imagine the number of times you do a nice job with a proposal that's moderately priced, that says these are things you should do, then like, okay, well, who should do them? And it's like, well, we can do them if you want, or you can bid it out. Like you have now the information to bid it out to someone else.
Correct. That is exactly right to me. And somebody saying, and you can do some like Hormozy stuff too. You can come in and be like, look, I'm $2,500. If I don't identify $10,000 worth of annual savings through automation, I'll give you the $2,500 back. You're just getting paid to sniff around their company and look for leverage. And now I'm like, oh, okay.
And if they haven't ever done any of this stuff, then you got to think there's some low hanging fruit you should be able to find.
I know there is. You know me, I'm working on a model right now that I think is, but there's so much opportunity for that kind of like, hey, I'm happy to design a B2B podcast growth strategy for you. By the way, I used to produce my first million, bang, bang, bang. And it's just $980. And most of it is the same for every B2B guy. And then you just put 20% new shit on the edges of it. You do some scraping of maybe some podcast that they could be guests on. You talk, and then you're like, here's your report. It was $1,000. By the way, if you want me to actually do the outreach to get you podcast guests, that's $300 a month. You kick it to the Philippines, easy. Like you can now use the consulting to get in and sniff around instead of sitting there like in a WeWork being like, I need a SaaS. Oh, this seems like a problem, but nobody will pay for it. Like this is the other way around. Like just get in there and do low leverage shit, but just be on the hunt for leverage. Like in our relationship, like I would not have hired you if you would have at the stage where you're at, if I didn't know you were involved. But we now have a relationship. And if you're like, hey, I created a content operating system in Airtable because John, I know that you really want to produce 50 things a day and it's whatever, $399 a month. And all you did was just clone an Airtable. And now it's $399 a month. And now whether I churn off of the expensive per episode consulting stuff, you don't give a shit because you get $399 a month. You need about 20 of those and you're good. So like, I think you, with your skills, you have a nose for money. I think don't be afraid to go in and pursue low leverage stuff if you're sniffing around for not low leverage stuff. That would be my vote.
And so I know you're using the terminology of leverage a lot, but this is like a little bit Paul Graham's like do things that don't scale, right? Like you're finding out where the opportunities are by willing to put a little skin in the game, take things at lower margin, but then you're going to find the opportunities and be able to make up for it then.
It doesn't necessarily need to be low margin. Like you're willing to do things at lower scalability, but not right. Like, look, you could make $3,000 on a $3,500 B2B podcast strategy you write for somebody on a flat fee basis. You could make insane margins, but there's no leverage there. Right. So I think it's not necessarily like give away your shit for free. You can be paid and paid well, but you're never going to like make $100,000 a month and, have your Stripe links hit. Like, so I don't, the other thing with Paul Graham, I think when he talks about this is they start with like a plan to conquer the world. And then they start with the SaaS they want to create. And then it's like, feel free to take the pictures for the Airbnbs that are first listed on the website. The classic example. They took the pictures of their first listings, but they knew they wanted to build a SaaS or a marketplace for short-term rentals. I'm not advocating that. I'm not saying you go in knowing what you're going to do. I'm saying you go in saying, I like this problem set. I like this customer. I can acquire them. I know they're in pain. I'm not exactly sure what form my painkiller will take. Rather than, I'm going to build a marketplace of B2B podcasters to all be on each other's podcasts to grow each other's audiences. That would be the venture strategy. And then you build a bunch of tech and then you do things that don't scale. Like, I'm not advocating that. I'm advocating the other way, which is you do it to find the problems worth solving that meet your criteria because you don't want to build a consulting business. It's kind of what I did with Sagan, honestly. Like, it's actually what I did. It's not kind of what I did. It is what I did, which was like, I did some coaching because I was like, why aren't more people hiring globally? It's like, I don't get it. Why aren't more people hiring globally? They should all be hiring globally. And the answers that I found were the seed corn of what Sagan became. And I'm like, okay, and now I've got some leverage on Sagan, and Sagan continues to build leverage. It's not perfect, but we're on that journey of more scalability and more leverage.
And then the way you look at this, like, would you like start with a niche? So like if I'm doing the podcast and video production, am I finding the B2B companies that could benefit from that content strategy and sniffing around? Or is it just finding like small businesses and companies and just kind of, I guess, given the skill set, there's a lot of things that I could do consulting in and try and find opportunities in.
I think it's what problem you're excited by. Like Global Town I've been in that game forever and I'll be in it forever. So that one's easy for me. I knew I wasn't going to like revolutionize the dumpster rental business. Like I don't want to play in that game. And so for you, I think you've got maybe some categories that you're more excited about than others, just based on what you like doing. And so I would just push in the direction of what kind of energizes you. You're like, dude, I cannot stop building shit in Claude. Okay, listen to that. And I know I'm supposed to go do this, but I'm bored with Airtable these days. Okay, then go build a Claude consulting off and be like, if I can't find you ways to use Claude, I'll give you your money back. And now you're in the game. And next thing you know, you're piping Claude into big chained prompts and making SaaS money or whatever. That's for you. I would like listen to like where your instincts take you. Like what can't you stop thinking about right? Like, what do you just want to play with?
I bounce around, to be honest. So I'll do some of this maybe just because the consulting stuff I'm doing. Like I have the one client who's a garden center. So I'm messing around in Airtable and looking at stuff to help him. I'm doing a lot of the podcast work now. So I have some of that stuff. I have some event stuff. I have some ideas for some like, I guess like productized services around events. So all those things, I'm like, you could take one of these and make a very small offering that's really easy to scale once you have, one person that knows spreadsheets can build the dashboards. It's like if I build a small content engine, which I have a team to help do already, then I just get some light lead gen on it, and like I could sell those dashboards for $500 or $1,000, and like it's very low brain damage. You don't need to move a
Generally,
lot of them to cover costs.
you're better at this than I am. I would start with like, what do you know you can distribute? Like, who are the easiest customers? Like, it's the Hormozy. Like, they have money. It's a growing market. You can find them and they're in pain. Of those that you just said, does any one of those meet all four of those categories? Like, event one kind of jumps out to me just based on what you've said. Like, you know that they're paying way too much for their X. They're easy to find because they all post events. Events are a growing industry post-COVID, and they have money. Like, they're not college students.
So that's interesting. I've not looked at that framework. So
Oh, you haven't heard
something
that? Yeah,
be,
he says the four
no.
characteristics of a good market.
Yeah, so I'll be
Good
studying that
offer.
one later. I think that one of the things I've struggled with, I've always been the back end guy. So someone else has always done the selling, and I'm the one that focuses on the fulfillment. So knowing that if I'm the one leading the organization now, that like sales is a big component of that. So events, as we talked about before, is interesting because you can scrape the events. You know when the event is, you know when they have to buy. So I feel like you get a little bit of a head start versus like B2B podcasts. Like technically, I know we can do everything that needs to be done. But getting 10 calls on my calendar a week or something, that's something that I have not cracked the code on.
You can also pursue opportunities that are less sales focused. Like, there are some things that it's, dude, if you can't sell, what are you doing in this industry? Versus others that are more logistically or mechanically or automation heavy that are less sales intensive. Right? Like, have you read Theory of Constraints, or like the goal?
No.
Basically, it's like, what's the hard part of this business? And in B2B podcasting, it's all customer acquisition, I suspect. It's not scaling fulfillment. It's, how do I get B2B podcasters to pay me X? Okay. Do you like that problem? No, dude. Waking up and having 10 calls on my calendar with a bunch of B2B podcasters sounds shitty. Well, that suggests that's maybe not the right Dan's personality opportunity fit. Oh, events? Yeah, man. You just email them. You quote them a better price on their services. You know their buying timeline. You could sell them on a freaking webinar, and then they just buy or they don't. Feels more like a Dan business if you don't like ripping 10 calls a day, right? So like, I think the opportunity that's a reflection of your personality and your interests is probably the one that kind of sneaks to the top of the list comparatively versus me, right? The things that I like leaning into are a little bit different.
And I think the sales aspect, some of it, I think when I had a business partner before, like he was a sales guy. So trying to put him in the ops, like he just broke things as opposed to help with any of them. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm bad at it or just haven't really given a lot of attempts at it. I feel like when I get on calls, I close business. It's just a function of, I think, that initial part of the lead gen.
Top of funnel. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, my sense is, man, if you're going to be a business owner, you have to do sales, whether it's selling employees or selling, you have to do it. My sense would be is just knowing you and getting to know you, like your competence is what sells. It's not you being a sales guy, right? Like you're not like, somebody talks to me for 5 minutes and you're like, you're a goddamn golden retriever. Like it's a different energy. It's a different sales energy. So I am naturally attracted to more kind of high energy, like get me in the room with the franchisor and I can preach the sermon, right? Which is, I think, different than your sales energy, which is good sales energy, but it's, different sales energy. Obviously for you, as you look at different opportunities, right? There's also ways you can plug that gap in that. Let's pretend you were lights out at Airtable. There's an Airtable ecosystem that generates people who need help with their Airtable that's not. And if you have a differentiated offer in terms of building Airtable for people, that's a business model that naturally you don't have to go out and find your customers. They're sitting in the Airtable forums asking questions. Or events, so like you can also, or partner with Sagan and build something that's attached to the back end of Sagan. Now you don't have to sell because you're selling to a captive audience. So like there is ways as you like design the structures that maybe reduce your exposure to like shit you don't want to do. Or not shit you don't want to do, but like Where's
Double down on your
Dan's
strengths.
magic, right?
Yeah.
Like, where's Dan's magic? Look, it's a combination of automation, global talent, and X. Okay, that's where Dan and B2B stuff. It's like, great. How do we piece those together like Jenga style? So that'd be my vote for you. But do you like that journey from like consulting to leverage?
Yeah, and I feel like I've been on it. So I've been consulting, 6 years now? And, like, there's aspects of it where I see something and I'm like, "This can turn into something." So, like, Airtable, like, I messed around with it, and then a client would wanna do something, and I'm like, "Oh, this should be a database and not a spreadsheet." So then you build something, and all of a sudden, your skills, you're getting paid hourly to do stuff where your skills get better and better, and now I'm pretty damn good at Airtable. And you kind of follow the tech scene as it grows, and so you learning about the AI tools, and, like, the skills just start compounding over time.
I think that you got paid to get educated though, right? You were making money when you were learning Airtable,
Yeah.
right? The other thing I just want to mention for you is don't think that the only end state of this is SaaS. It's things that have no marginal cost of replication. So it could be a ebook that you charge $799 for. No marginal cost replication. It could be replication. It could be a community. It could be a very small scale podcast, but with a hyper affluent audience. And you can charge $5,000 for a premier sponsor per episode because it's only enterprise CTOs interested in automation. And even though you have 100 listeners, they are the right 100. And that has no marginal cost replication. So I wouldn't just limit yourself to think the only place you can go with it could be royalty stuff, revenue sharing stuff, which has no marginal cost replication. So like, don't think that the only end, just think the end state that you're chasing is no marginal cost of replication, right? Like that's where you're chasing because that's the highest form of leverage.
And I imagine it's a bit of a path of that cost is just decreasing. So you're going from US-based talent to global talent. So you're improving your margin and that cost of replication is going down. You're putting process and systems in place so the cost of replication goes down. You go from boutique consulting to productized service, the cost goes down.
Broadly speaking, yes. And it's Maslow's hierarchy of leverage stuff, right? Which is the leverage pyramid, or Maslow's hierarchy of how work gets done in a company, which is the fatter the bottom of the pyramid is, which is AI automation, ebooks, things that have no marginal cost of replication. Generally speaking, the higher leverage are, generally speaking, the more valuable you are, generally speaking, like that's why VC backs SaaS companies, because they're all bottom of the pyramid and very little top of the pyramid in terms of the way that they deliver value to their customers. And so like, as I'm on that journey, we're exploring a whole host of different ways to build leverage and not be in the consulting business, which is what everybody wants, but then you're a consultant and that's hard. It's just hard. Good. Yep. Things to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm always love bullshitting about as you sniff stuff. And again, I'll do another Hormozy thing, right? Anytime you see a pain point in one of your customers, recognize that there is a spectrum of ways that you could attack the exact same problem. So you see that somebody needs to lose weight. Pay me $100,000 a day and I will fly out and grocery shop for you. You're solving their problem. On the other extreme, here's a 9-cent ebook called Shopping for the Busy Dad. They are both solving the exact same pain point. So as you go out and you identify pain points that people have and who have money who want to solve them, recognize there's almost always a way. There's 50 different ways you could solve it. Well, I could build a custom Airtable for them. Well, I could I could productize services. Well, I could do consulting. Well, I could hire them a full stack developer through Sagan and then bill that developer out who builds it for them, but I give them coaching. I could launch a school community where they join and it's a DIY community building Airtable in your own company. Like all of that is based on the same pain you saw, which is these dudes need help with automation. There's a staffing answer. There's a SaaS answer. There's a consulting answer. There's a productized service answer. So like just recognize there's 15 different ways to help people lose weight. And you just kind of like meet the market in the version that you think has the most resonance. This is how Sagan came though, which was like, there was only 2 options, staffing markup or influencer dog shit expensive headhunter. And I was like, I know what they want, but these are the only 2 paths that have really, or maybe like Upwork, middleman, job board shit. And I was like, Nah,
Which has its own challenges.
which has its own challenges. Scale,
There's a lot of skill
pricing.
that's required for the end user to be able to use those
Correct.
platforms.
Too much DIY. So they wanted a couple clicks up from DIY, but a couple clicks below paying for a business influencer's jet card. Right. And so that's like we snuck right in there with another option, but it attacked the same pain point. So as you think about what's out there, I would just encourage you to be like, I've identified this pain. Event people have terrible swag. I forgot exactly what your event thing was, but it was like somewhere in that family. Like you could write a online course called Nailing Swag for your event and charge $399 and run Facebook ads. I don't know if that's the best way to do it, but that's a way to do it. You could get an SBA loan and buy a t-shirt factory and then become a manufacturer of swag that's just higher quality. And everything in between, right? Like, so that's what you could resell somebody who has a factory but doesn't have a sales force. So like, all I mean is just like playing with the concept of like leverage and pain points and how you work your way in. Like, this is where I spend all of my time thinking. I pitched something to you last week about a version of this exact thing, which is like, I see the problem. I don't like the way this is structured. It only addresses part of the market. It's preventing adoption. So I think I want to come in like this, you know?
Yeah. Which I like that more of the middleman approach. So the idea of buying a t-shirt factory, I'd say is extremely low on the list, but being able to help someone that has it, or the way the industry is really set up, it's manufacturer, distributor, customer. So you're just playing in that distributor game.
Yeah.
And if you're competing against the companies in middle America that are all hiring people for 40, 50 grand a year, and you can hire the same or better people globally, then
yeah, of course.
You can
and
certainly win that
you're
game.
a value add distributor, right? So you, in addition to that, you also put QR codes on all the swag so that you can build an event list that was just from that event, which you can help them market to for attendance next year. Yeah, dude. Hey, we call it integrated swag, where we put QR codes on everything and we help you build your email list so that you don't have to go reacquire those attendees next year and now you've found a sweet spot of your combination of passion for automation, tech, pricing. You're cheaper, better, stronger, faster, more valuable, whatever. And you're like, I want to play there because there's great leverage in just marketing to an email list. Right? Like, so that's like a really stupid idea off the top of my head, but that would be a very specific example of no one in the world other than Dan could attack that. Nobody. You're one of one in that category. That's the way I think
Dharmesh has talked about this. You look at your skills and you Venn diagram them and you find that overlap. And if you're maybe the top 5, 10% in 3 different things, the combination of that, you're, probably top, less than 1% of that.
That's what Sagan is. Sagan is like global talent plus leverage plus leadership, community, coaching. Like that is my and business owners who want to build leverage. If you hear those 5 categories, you're like, John's the best in the world at the combination. There's better global talent people. There's better AI people. There's better leader people. There's better lazy people, but there's not all of them. Right? Like I sit right in the middle of that one. I take my combination of skills over anybody along those axes. Good.
Yeah.
All right, man. You're the host. Final thoughts, lessons. How do people find you if they want help with their B2B podcast?
Yeah. If you want help with your podcast, you can go to remixalot.com. You can book a call with me there. We can kind of chat through what your goals are and see if we can come up with a good strategy for you. And then we got a great team that can do all the production work.
Love it, man. We're a happy customer.
Awesome.
All right.
Well, thanks, John. We'll talk soon.
Pleasure.